Okay, 3 chapters to go. Chapters 14, 15, and 16. We have the neurodevelopmental disorders starting in childhood or maybe even during the gestation period. The neurocognitive disorders, which basically it focuses on older individuals. I don't know. I look at this and sometimes I think, that is the price that we pay for living longer. Some of these disorders, particularly in this area. Not that I want anyone to have these disorders, but we are living longer, and maybe that's one of the prices that we pay for it. We have chapter 16, talking about some of the mental health services that we have as far as institutionalized, disinstitutionalized individuals, and we have the legal and ethical issues. We will start first with chapter 14. And in this chapter, we are looking at, had an unwanted visitor there at the bottom of the page. We are looking at disorders that start in childhood and change over time. In the DSM-5, there are some reclassifications. Asperger's have been taken out. And in its place there, we have an autism spectrum disorder, which we will be talking about a little bit later on. We have specific learning disorders, which has been taken from the DSM-4 in reading, math, and writing. ADHD, individuals who are highly active with a short attentional span. We have oppositional defiant disorder. These kids are just naughty. Really, really, really naughty. They can be worked with, and they can be worked with successfully. And if this was a therapeutic class, we would discuss this. We have conduct disorder. These individuals, children, young people, are the ones, as an example, who will pour gasoline on a cat, and then they're in the park, in the city park, and they light them a fire and let them run across the lawn. And they, many times, they particularly enjoy doing this at night. Okay, then we have comorbid. Comorbid really isn't a disorder as such, a specific disorder. It's more of a condition. It just means that two or more disorders are concurrent at the same time. An individual with a histrionic personality disorder and depressed. That would be comorbid. So that's basically what comorbid is. I put in here more of a review than really as a disorder. So I don't want you to say, oh, that child has comorbid. No, they may have two disorders, which would be called comorbid, but they don't have comorbid. Autism spectrum disorder, Asperger's has been removed. They talk about intellectual disability. The average IQ is 100. So mild starts around 70 or 75, depending on who you're talking to and visiting with. And then we have moderate, and then severe, and then profound. And they switch the numbers somewhat, but profound usually starts at 20 and below. The individual with the lowest IQ that I recall being tested was an IQ of 3. And I hope that my memory serves me correctly on that. Visit a little bit about Down syndrome, many times born to mothers who are a little bit older when they have their children. PKU, phenylketonuria. These are individuals who will have a difficult time in breaking down amino acids. And Lesch-Nyland syndrome, this is in males. This is found in males and intellectual disability. And what makes this interesting is that females are carriers. The mothers are carriers, and it's carried on the X chromosome. So the females have one X chromosome to override the defective X chromosome, but in the male, this is not possible. So basically, this is what we're looking at as far as the developmental disorders are concerned. Then in chapter 15, we have the neurocognitive disorders, delirium, Alzheimer's, vascular neurocognitive disorder. You can glance through that. You can pick out areas of interest in that. It is kind of interesting, though, about the vascular disorders or injuries that these individuals have, particularly the football players. I know one individual that felt as though, and maybe it was, I'm not arguing, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I'm just saying this is what happened. Started playing contact football at the age of 4. And football country, we've got to play football. And about at the age of 6 or 7, he had 2 sons. At the age of 6 or 7, one of them had a severe head injury, concussion. So basically, football helmets, $300 a piece were bought for these kids that would cut down on some of the concussion. And yet they still felt as though it was okay to play football. Now maybe it is. We have these contact sports. We have fathers who think it's great at the age of 6 to put their boys or kids into cage fighting. And you've probably seen this cage fighting, MMA, and they think it is perfectly all right. Of course, there's some restrictions at that age. But I'm just wondering overall about contact sports. You can go through this, and this is basically what I stated is that I feel as though that some of these disorders could be the price that we pay for living longer. Okay, and our next chapter is chapter. Even though there's a great deal of material in chapter 16, I guess there's a couple of things that really perk my interest. It's my own personal feeling, and no one else certainly has to go along with it. But one of them is the insanity defense. The insanity defense has been with us for quite a while. If we go back to Hammurabi and the Code of Hammurabi, we'd probably be going back roughly, around 4,000 years. And rules were put in there so individuals could, if it would be necessary to use this type of defense, they could use it. We have the MacNaughton rules and we have the Durham rules. But what is interesting here is, Ms. Ray, that the behavior is not culpable unless the mind is guilty. I find this very interesting. And I might say insanity is a legal term. It is not a psychological term, but is a legal term. But I find men's right. Behavior is not culpable. In other words, they're not guilty unless the mind is guilty. And, you kind of think that through, and that is kind of interesting. Duty to warn. There was a therapist that was working with an individual. The individual, the client or patient, said he was going to bring bodily harm against another individual, which the individual did. Now, the therapist did tell security. The therapist did tell the police, but the police did not carry this any further. And so they found Board of Regents at the University of California guilty. That we do have an obligation to warn if someone is going to harm someone or threaten someone. We have the concept of privileged communication. I'm not going to go through and discuss it. I find it is very interesting. One thing, it varies from state to state, and it may even vary from setting to setting. Attorneys have privileged communication. Doctor patients, to a degree, have privileged communication. Therapists have communication. But there are other circumstances connected with this. So to really understand privileged communication, number one, I would go ahead and do a little background study on this and then check with the state just concerning privileged communication, because it does vary from state to state. Well, folks, it's been fun. Now, as we go into the assignment is in Mars Place, 11, relate in 300 words some important aspects that you feel about each of the chapters 14, 15, and 16. I'm not going to be real formal about this, just so you have kind of a nodding acquaintance with these chapters. And again, it isn't because I do not feel as though these chapters are important. I feel that they are very important. I also know that you folks, from the look of the assignment, have really submitted some excellent material. I appreciate it. I don't know whether you've learned very much this semester, but I have learned, and I do appreciate that. I appreciate working with each and every one of you. This assignment, like I say, is due December 12th. The rest of the assignments are due December 12/5. So this assignment is due a little bit later. Now, if you have any questions, ask. Like I say, it's been enjoyable, and about all that's left to say is this.